Hello and welcome to Diary of a Common Man. This is Salim Lalani. This is the Silver Jubilee episode of this series, and I wish to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting me in this journey. Thank you. I also need to firstly apologize to you for last week. I just got busy with a few things. Rest assured, we have got a lot of material to talk about. Last week we spoke about leadership mafia and how social media is slowly but steadily exposing the dark side of many humanitarians and spiritual leaders like Aga Khan. This week we will talk about educated, intelligent and progressive people called Aga Khani Murids. In fact, we will take an example of a real person. Yes, a person who represents the Imam. This real life scenario will take you inside the mind of an Aga Khani follower. But before we do that, let's do some housekeeping. I'm excited to announce that a brand new Facebook page will go live hopefully this weekend. It is called Aga Khan Exposed. I'm sure you will visit it, you will like it and you will share it. My viewer will remember I spoke about Urdu series a few months ago. At that time we were considering the positives and the negatives, what to do. The good thing was my message is going to reach a very large audience, a much wider audience, but the trade-off was potential physical harm to Aga Khani Murids, particularly in Pakistan. I would like to highlight the word potential harm. But before any of that harm happens, if at all, I sincerely hope a meaningful dialogue will take place between me and Aga Khan or between me and his representatives on my channel. This Urdu series will not replace the English series, rather it will run simultaneously. Although it will cover the content of the English series, it will be professionally produced and it will have a slightly different and an exciting format. Exciting in the sense that we will name and shame individuals guilty of the wrongdoing apart from Aga Khan. We will get ex-Ismailis to narrate their experiences within the fraudulent system. We will invite the Muslim community to share their views. We will even get the youth to talk about how do they see the future of Aga Khani system. We will get psychologists and mental health professionals to talk about how can educated people not see what even a blind person can see. Lastly and most importantly, we will report on the work that we do with the law enforcement agencies around the world. I'm looking forward to the first episode sometime in September, and I hope that you will join me like you joined me for the English series. Yes, Mr. Karim Sumar, President of the Australia-New Zealand Council. But before we begin talking about Mr. Sumar, it is important that my viewers understand my relationship with him. When I came to Australia 37 years ago, Mr. Sumar was hardly a teenager and I was already married. But we never connected with each other for all those years until the year 2020. In the year 2020, it was very different for both of us. In that year, which is last year, I was now a rebel and he was the president of the Australia-New Zealand Council, representing the very system that I was talking against. Now, my case was initially handled by the past president, Mr. Chunara, and when Mr. Sumar took over, obviously he inherited this headache called Salim Lalani. I remember my first meeting with Mr. Sumar. And in that meeting, he had given me some advice. And at that time, I was involved with a charitable organization, and over a coffee, we were discussing my intentions of exposing Aga Khan. And out of that context, Mr. Sumar gave me a piece of advice. He said, Salim, you are better off concentrating on your charitable work. I hope my viewer will note the arrogance in those words. However, I decided not to take his free advice, and here I am before you in the year 2021. October 2020. It was at this point in time when I decided to launch my YouTube series and expose Aga Khan. But legality and ethics demanded that I inform Aga Khan about the content of my publication before I go on air. But here's the problem. How do you contact Aga Khan to let him know that this is the content? We all know, he is very well hidden from his muris and common people like me. Enter Mr. Sumar. Although I had left the system back in 2014, I knew Mr. Sumar was the current president, so I sent him an email on 13th of October 2020 disclosing my intention of exposing Aga Khan, and I even sent him a script of my first episode. I gave him 3 weeks to respond, failing which I would go on air. Now, the reason I had to bind him time wise was Aga Khani system is very well known to ignore any threats or any challenges. So Mr. Sumar respectfully advised me that he will forward it to Aga Khan. Now all these emails are with me, so if anyone should want to request it, let me know. 3 weeks passed. Do you think I got a response? So almost a month after I did not receive a response, I sent a reminder. To be precise, on 11 November 2020, still no response. Now that I had fulfilled my legal and ethical responsibility, I began preparing the launch. It is important to take note of the arrogance. Not so much by Mr. Sumar, he was only a postman at this point in time, but the arrogance of the system. This arrogance is a product of the fact that many people in the past have made noise like me, and many people have come and many people have gone, and that is the experience they have, and that is the experience the Jamaat has. Many members of the Jamaat have told me in Sydney that Salim, many people like you have come and gone. Okay, and that is true, but everyone forgets that I am the first person to openly challenge Aga Khan in an internet age. I am the first person in the internet age to show their face, to reveal the identity, and this is powerful. My identity may not be all that powerful, but internet is very, very powerful, and that is an era of judgment that the Aga Khani system made back in 2020, and soon they realized the stuff up. They basically remained arrogant like they have always been. That is the stuff up. And how did they realize it? We'll talk about that in a minute. Only time will tell, ladies and gentlemen, if this era of judgment will cause the eventual collapse of the system, if it collapses, or will it disintegrate slowly over time. It is possible. Anyway, once I got ignored, I wrote back to Mr. Sumar that I will now proceed with publishing my videos because Aga Khan didn't bother to communicate with me. This is in November 20. Fast forward to March 21. This is hardly 3 months. 6 videos are now published, and more importantly, they have rattled a few cages. Bingo! I get a response. Yes, not from Aga Khan, but from Mr. Sumar. He was lying low for 3 months. All of a sudden, he woke up. Now, Mr. Sumar did not come out in the open as my friend Karim Sumar, but he came out as a president of the council. And this letter is with me. And I'll tell you the gist of the letter. He basically requests me to take the video down and not post any such videos in the future. Then he makes me aware of the copyrighted pictures. Then he discredits my research, comparing my research with that of the paid staff at the Institute of Ismaili Studies, like Dr. Farhad Daftari, for example. Then he gives me a lesson on what Aga Khan has achieved and how respectable he is on the global stage. And then he accuses me of attacking Aga Khan, AKDN and the Jamaat. And lastly, but not definitely the least, he accuses me of stirring up animosity within Aga Khani Jamaat. What do you think should have been my response? My response can be found in the link below. But the gist of my response was, firstly, I reminded him that Aga Khan had shown disrespect by not responding to my emails. However, I will not be disrespectful to him. I will respond. Secondly, I advised him I had no intention of taking down the videos. Not only that, I advised him that this was only the beginning of a long series of videos coming up. Thirdly, regarding his comparison of my work with the paid staff of IIS, I advised him that he could keep his comparison and judgment in a safe deposit box at home. Then I challenged him to provide one example of how did I attack the Jamaat, Aga Khan and the AKDN. And lastly, I demanded that he justify his allegation that I had attempted to stir up animosity in the Jamaat. Is it surprising that he disappeared? Shouldn't be surprising. But it was only until May that year that he lied low. In one of my videos, I had requested Aga Khan or his representatives to have a meaningful dialogue with me. After, I think, almost more than 10 days of me publishing that video, he contacted me and arranged to meet. And during this meeting, he wanted to know the objective of my mission. And it was a funny question because I had already spoken about it, articulated my mission on so many occasions. Anyway, I advised him simply that I wanted Aga Khan to stop the God business, stop the looting of poor people and stop insulting Islam. And in reaction to that, he went on defensive. The meeting might have begun very well, but it didn't end up that way. In any case, as expected, Aga Khan or his representatives never responded to my demand. Now let's analyze this exchange and let's understand what can we learn from it. Firstly, I need everyone to know that Mr. Sumar is an educated and a respectable individual because I know him. If I look at him from system perspective, he is a personification of Aga Khani Jamaat. A great murid, a great leader, not exactly a dirty politician like others have been in the past. And I have seen many of them, rest assured. And each and every one of them were politicians of high quality. This man is different. And it is no wonder that I consider him as a friend. Although he works hard for the Imam and for the system, what did the system do for him or to him? It actually made him a deluded coward. And it is no wonder he suffers from what is called Stockholm syndrome. and I will prove it. I will prove the delusion, the cowardice, and the symptoms of Stockholm syndrome suffered by Mr. Sumar and as such by the Aga Khani Jamaat worldwide. If required in a court of law, I will do it. We all know what is cowardice, but some of my audience will struggle with delusion and Stockholm syndrome. So before we understand how is Mr. Sumar and the Jamaat is deluded and they suffer from a psychological disorder, we will first need to understand delusion. Delusion is basically a fixed belief that cannot be changed despite conflicting evidence. It cannot be changed. As an example, I say to you that the moon is round and you say to me, no Salim, moon is square. And I say to you, all you have to do is to look up in the sky and have a look. And you say to me that no, I don't need to look up in the sky. I know it is square. That is delusion. Stockholm syndrome. You are said to be suffering from Stockholm syndrome when you love the very person who abuses you. Actually, what happened is in 1973 in Sweden. Stockholm is a city in Sweden, and in Stockholm there was a bank robbery, and in this bank robbery 4 people were held hostage for 6 long days. And once these people were released, they defended the people who held them hostage. People were expecting them to file a report, lodge a complaint in the police, but these people actually lodged a complaint against the police and they defended the accused. Based on this incident, psychologists and mental health practitioners assigned a name to this condition called Stockholm syndrome. But how does all this apply to Mr. Sumar and to the Aga Khani Murids? Okay, let's pick the first one. Cowardice. Simple question to my viewer. What does a coward do that brave people do not do? Cowards hide. Not because their life is on threat or somebody is going to kill them, but they hide. Not necessarily behind a brick wall, but they hide from public scrutiny. Since I have begun my campaign, since I have raised some serious issues, serious legal, serious moral and serious ethical issues within Aga Khani system, not one Aga Khani or Aga Khan himself, not Mr. Sumar, no one has come forward to face me on my channel to clear my misunderstanding, and that is hiding. By the way, the invitation is still valid. My channel is still open. Please contact me if you want to appear on my channel, and tell everybody on my channel Salim is wrong. Tell them. They will not come. Aga Khan will not come. His Murids will not come because they are cowards. Now, if you do decide to come, I will allow you to speak your mind. In fact, I will allow you to discredit me and my work. Come on my channel. You are scholars. Yeah? IIS. You run various websites promoting Aga Khanism. Yeah? But you are cowards because you will not even identify yourself. What you do is you ignore people and you call people names behind their backs. And what you are doing in the internet age, what you did before, ignoring people, calling people names behind their backs, in the olden days that was okay. In the internet age, you are basically shooting yourself in the leg because everybody knows that Salim is right and you are a coward because you wouldn't front up. You are actually proving me right. Listen to me. If you are running the website, if you are an alwise, yeah, if you are an IIS scholar, you together, all of you are actually proving me right. And hence I say to you, because you ignore me, because you call me names behind my back, you are cowards. To prove Mr. Sumar's delusionary state, let us go back to his letter in March. And before we go to the letter, once again, what is delusion? Delusion is a fixed belief that cannot be changed despite conflicting evidence. That is delusion. So in this case, in Mr. Sumar's case, what is a fixed belief? I have created animosity in the Jamaat. His accusation. That is his fixed belief. What is the conflicting evidence? My videos. I have only presented in my videos what I have observed. When asked to prove my attack on the Jamaat, remember Mr. Sumar disappeared? He accused me of something that he believed against the existence of evidence. Against that existence of evidence, he accused me of creating animosity in the Jamaat is a very serious allegation. And when I confronted him, guess what? He disappeared. Now, that is delusion, that you believe something despite conflicting evidence. And don't forget, we are talking about an educated person. Once again, you are said to be suffering from Stockholm syndrome when you love the very person who has captivated you or who has abused you. And the question is, how is Mr. Sumar abused? At least from two perspectives, at least. And when I say, remember, when I say Mr. Sumar, I mean the Jamaat. Two perspectives people are abused. One is called the abuse of trust and the other is the abuse of money. And who is the witness of this fact? Me. Abuse of trust. I have actually witnessed myself and I have witnessed Mr. Sumar declaring himself a sinner and seeking forgiveness of his sins from Aga Khan. Now, Mr. Sumar and me, when I was Aga Khani, we put trust in Aga Khan that he was some kind of a divine representative. Yeah, that trust has come down crashing. And if Mr. Sumar doesn't know the reality of Aga Khan, he is in a dream world, because there is overwhelming and tangible evidence that Aga Khan is a sinner himself. So Mr. Sumar, the abused, not only loves the abuser, but he actually reveres him. Abuse of money. I have also witnessed Mr. Sumar giving money to Aga Khan's representatives in my Jamaat Khana, and Mr. Sumar believes, he trusts Aga Khan with that money. He trusts that Aga Khan will spend the money for the betterment of the humanity. But Mr. Sumar refuses to visit Aga Khan Development Network website, which confirms it is less about charity and more about investments. Mr. Sumar also refuses to accept that Aga Khan does not provide accountability of the money. It is a well-known fact. Aga Khan will not account for the money. On one hand, he rolls in luxury. On the other hand, his murids are struggling to pay the bill, and he takes the money from those people who are struggling. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a sign of a person suffering from delusion and Stockholm syndrome. Once again, it is important to understand that Mr. Sumar is a personification of Aga Khan community. Almost everyone is in the same boat. The boat is now being rocked by waves of truth, by waves of courage, and by waves of divine intervention. That's all we have for this week. Next week we will name one more name. Until then, take care. Goodbye.